All right, so I got this simple distillation apparatus moved over here to the fume hood. It's essentially the same as I had it on the lab bench. There's a couple things I need to do before I can start heating it up. The first is we want to actually get a temperature of the vapors. So I just got a thermometer here, and in your kit is a thermometer holder, and we'll just slide that in there. And it goes right in the top. So I've already greased that up. Twist it, and I'm going to lower the thermometer. So the tip of the thermometer is right in the area where those three pieces of glass meet up. All right, now the next thing I need to do is I'm going to want to get some cool water going through here, and that's what we're using these hoses here for. So throw this behind my setup, and I'm going to have one of these lines go on one of these, and the other one go to the other. And the one that's on the bottom, I'm going to hook up to my cold water. And that's what these are in the fume hood, is water. And the other one, I just want to angle it so it goes into the drain. And I'm going to check it in case it does splash out. Water flow doesn't need to be super fast. I typically try to go enough that I don't necessarily see it flowing. And at first it's going to throw some air pockets through because these lines don't typically have a lot of water going through it. So don't worry about that. Depending on how long it's been, there might actually be some discolorization. That's just from sediment building up in the lines, but this came out all right. So I'm going to just go ahead and leave that on because technically I'm good to go. Last thing I'm going to do is finally plug in my heating mantle and turn this on. Now technically, got an on light and then a light that tells you it's actually heating. And but these numbers don't mean the same from mantle to mantle. Max and min kind of do. So I actually cranked it all the way to 10. And what I'm going to do is, while it's going now, I'm going to watch my flask pretty constant. And once I get to a simmer, I'm going to start playing around with my temperature and try to find a setting where I can keep the simmer going pretty much constantly. And just a simmer, we don't want a simmer. We don't want a hard boil. We just want a nice little gentle going. And if we get it good, we should see the temperature stabilize and be at a very fixed amount. But we're going to let this go until we're hoping about 30 milliliters comes over. But I'm going to pause the video now. You guys don't need to watch that. I'll come back on once I've got when I'm stopping the distillation. Okay, so back on. I got a little bit of a simmer going. So I am actually just going to back off my temperature now and watch this a little bit more closely. I don't have a good camera angle on it to let you see the simmer, so I guess you're going to take my word on it. But it's just a very gentle simmer right now. And if I could hold that simmer perfect, that would be ideal. And it did just start, so my temperature is still pretty cool. I'm only at almost 30 degrees Celsius, so the vapors above it aren't that hot yet. But it won't be much longer before they are. All right, and I'm going to pause again. Okay, so what we got going on now, got some condensation happening. So our tube has now got some solutions in it. And if you look ever so closely, I hope I got it so you can see it, you can actually see that there is liquid dripping into the graduated cylinder. Not super fast, but it is fast enough that we know this should be done maybe at 15 more minutes at most. Now what's going to happen is, as long as I don't touch the temperature, I should see the simmering stop and still some liquid left behind. And right now my vapor is right around 80 degrees Celsius. I should actually see that vapor drop a bit before it starts to go back up, because once we get to the point where water can start vaporizing, that's going to cause that to go up as well. But my vapor should stay about that same temperature for a while, and I should just have a gentle simmer until that hits hopefully around 30 milliliters. But technically, since this is simple distillation, I do know there is some water coming over with it. It should be, majority of it should be ethanol. All right, so I'm going to pause again until we get closer to the end. Okay, so my simmering has slowed, still dripping over about the same rate, but it has slowed, and my temperature started to shoot up some. Now, it's not went up a lot. It's only went up about 3 degrees from where it was, so I'm not even terribly worried about shutting anything down now, but I am going to watch this a lot more closely from here until it's all done. And what I'm expecting to see is that simmering should almost stop. Now, you might see as liquid comes back and runs down into the round bottom flask, that as soon as it hits that surface, it seems like it flash boils. And what's happening is the more pure ethanol is coming back into the super hot water and actually just it boils off a lot quicker. Now, I'm not terribly worried about waiting until that stops, because I know I'm not going to get this a pure sample. But what I'm looking at is a combination of things. I want to try to get it to where that simmering is almost non-existent, and I don't want that temperature to shoot up that much more. So as soon as I start see it drastically going up again, I'm going to shut off my heat, because if the vapors start getting hotter now, it's because there's some water vapor in there, and the water vapor is going to be hotter. All right, so we're just going to watch more closely, and we're about done. Okay, so all that's happened since we stopped, my simmering hasn't really slowed down, but my temperature has shot up another 5 degrees. It was sitting about 80 almost the entire time, and right before the last time I unpaused the video, it went up to 85, and it's hitting about 90 now. So I'm going to call this a done experiment, because that's a good indication we're starting to heat up the water that's in there, or that mixture of the two, and we're getting more and more water over here. So we're sitting a little bit over 25, and I am going to go ahead and lower this, but that's all I'm going to do, is I'm just going to lower it so the glass is not getting the heat exposed to it that much. That, and you can still see it is still simmering. But I'm just going to let this sit and cool down on its own. And I'll go ahead and unplug this. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to bother to show you the cleanup. But I'll take the ethanol out, and we'll do our check to see how much water we got out of it. So and I'm going to use some salt this time, because that's quick. And then when I go to clean this up, I actually typically just do everything backwards from what we did. And I'll clean the grease off with a paper towel, and then I wash off each component and then put it away, and just do each little component separately. But I do typically put my glass away, even back into the little kits, even a bit wet. It's okay if there's a little bit of moisture on it, but do give a good thorough cleaning. This lab should leave it relatively clean, because ethanol and water, we sometimes use that to clean glassware. So it should be easy to clean up this time. But do watch the grease. It seems to thicken up, and it doesn't wash off super well. So use paper towel to get all that. And yep, that should conclude us for today.